A warm welcome to all of you joining this 2020 Graduate Study Expo. My name is Louise Bennett, and I'm just going to get my audio visuals correct. There we go. And Director of the Monash Master of Food Science and Agribusiness. I'm also Co-Director of Monash Food Innovation and an active researcher across the space of food and innovation in general. I've come into this role from undergraduate studies in chemistry and then postgraduate studies in functional foods in general for managing human health. I was then 20 years at CSIRO working on developing and characterising functional foods, we say from paddock to plate. So I'm really pleased to be here to tell you about our new Master of Food Science and Agribusiness, which started this year. And we are now accepting 2 intakes per year of students. So before going into the course details, I firstly want to take a few slides to explain the context of food science and agribusiness in the world today. I don't need to tell you that we have some challenges, but don't worry, there's also a big effort underway to address those challenges. And a part of the plan is education and training in this space. And I reason that you may be thinking about postgraduate studies in food science and agribusiness because you also get the urgent need to understand all the opportunities available to those with expertise in this space. I'll take the next few slides to paint the big picture of the resources and logistical challenges around food supply and relationships to human quality of life. So let me explain this data. Given that we use approximately 50% of habitable land for agriculture, this map has colour-coded the amount of land that would be used if the world switched to the diets eaten in different regions of the world. For example, if we adopted the diet of the countries in green, we would stay under 50% cultivation of the total available habitable land. However, if the world transitioned to the diet of countries in orange, that is a westernised diet, we would need to cultivate greater than 100% of the habitable land. And I'm sure you can see the problem with this scenario. So in a seminal publication in 2018 by Walter Willett and his co-authors, there was a very large number of co-authors, they came to the conclusion that unhealthy and unsustainably produced food poses a global risk for people and planet. Nearly a billion people in the world lack sufficient food, and many more consume an unhealthy diet, contributing to premature death and morbidity. Simultaneously, global food production is the single largest human pressure on Earth, threatening local ecosystems and stability of the entire Earth system. Now, I probably don't need to tell you there's some evidence that the COVID pandemic is a reflection of the pressure of human habitation on local ecosystems. But don't worry, a lot of analysis and planning has gone into identifying this set of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, for the planet and for our survival. And you can see that at least 3 of these are focused on food production, including human access to food and sustainable practices to preserve the natural environment needed for food production, balanced by the need to maintain biodiversity. In other words, food production and its application to eradicate hunger and to maintain life are very much on the agenda. And the good news is that we also have a cumulative base of research to inform how we reach the mission goals. For example, here are the scientifically validated targets to formulate healthy diets from combinations of foods. So this sort of data can drive strategic planning in future primary production and the optimal utilisation of food biomass, including so-called waste streams of biomass that can provide additional nutrition and a focus for food product innovation. We also know the scientific targets for the inputs needed to produce foods in a sustainable way. Some of the key indices of environmental sustainability are listed here, together with upper limit targets. Altogether, this information gives us the framework for optimising and guiding how we will feed ourselves in the future and the transitions needed to achieve sustainability. These concepts are quite mainstream now, with ongoing debate around the comparative sustainability of different dietary patterns. For example, we're hearing that our future is likely to contain more plant-based foods and even so-called cellular agriculture, assuming the modelling for this type of innovation shows a net cost and environmental benefit. So what's the planning around operationalising the SDGs? Well, this World Economic Forum report concludes the following roadmap or framework to take us forward. We know that our food systems are not fit for purpose and a transformation is needed. We think that there's opportunity for transformation through business to drive the innovations. we think that we know for sure that there will be new systems and processes to redesign those systems. We know that there will be excuse me, social and ecological priorities at the centre of these redesigned food systems. And we know that responsive and responsible leadership is needed to achieve this. So where do we find leadership? We find leadership in leaders from those who are trained to understand what needs to be done. And so what we've got then is this 7 missions defined by the International Union of Food Science and Technology. And these missions, as you can see, are listed here. In this context, we can consider that training is a prerequisite also for research, and equally is a prerequisite for the role of industry in taking innovations into the marketplace and to end users like ourselves. So there are 7 missions defined by IUFOST, and later I'll come to show you how the Monash Masters maps to these 7 missions. An important point here is to recognise the missions are inherently transdisciplinary, and they involve multiple stakeholders and segments of the supply chain. And we've made a big effort in our Masters course to explore the network of relationships needed to introduce improvement and change. And if that wasn't enough to do, the IUFOST also has identified some additional needs for success in modernising the food supply. And you can see those listed here. And I'm hoping that you are beginning to see yourselves in this future. So let's have a look now at the details of our Masters course. You can see that from this grab, we're concerned with delivering a training program that prepares graduates for the creation and management of the food supply needs into the future. The Monash Masters is generally a Clayton-based course with some exceptions for the business units which are taught out of Caulfield. It's either a 2-year full-time or 4-year part-time course with the possibility of faster completion if you have approved credits based on your previous studies. And you need to get in touch with myself to discuss if and how these studies will impact on credits for our core and advanced units. So you can see now that we're very pleased we've moved to 2 intakes a year, and the next intake of students will be in semester 1 starting in March 2021. To be eligible, you need a bachelor's course and an undergraduate degree in some sort of a science, engineering or technology with a credit average. And I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. So as I said, we've designed a course to inform industry development around the 7 IUFOST missions. 6 out of 7 of these missions are deeply embedded across the course, while mission 7 can be accessed through Monash research in the Part D advanced practice studies by working with active researchers based at Monash. The Masters course has been designed for the future, and by that we mean that we highlight the essential role of food in terms of either human and economic prosperity. If there's one thing we've learned from COVID, it's that our food supply chain is the key to our survival in a modern world. Within this framework, we know that food is cross-disciplinary and works through a complex supply chain and networks of stakeholders. We know it's fast-moving and it's a low-margin industry, and therefore needs to keep pace with technology. The good news is that this dynamic intersectivity of food supply creates broad opportunities for employment and innovation, and we want our graduates to be comfortable working across the technical, commercial and even the ethical aspects of food. Another feature of the course relates to how we teach. After mastering the disciplinary information and how to apply that information, as educators, we now know that expectations of employers are growing in the space of interpersonal competency, creativity and problem solving. And we develop these skills through interactive learning and problem solving. In many units, we invite professionals with authentic on-the-job experience to teach and share their knowledge. We assess learning in ways to develop your success and employability skills, as shown here on this slide. And here's a list of the possible roles and employers that we anticipate for our graduates. And you can see that they're not all technical, and they're not all about food science. So we anticipate many possible career pathways for graduates from this course. In case you're wondering what distinguishes this course from other similar courses, I would say we're differentiated by the following criteria. Our course is focused on the food supply chain from post-farm gate to consumer, and that allows for that very important consumer and retail angle, and that's taught by our colleagues from Monash Food Innovation. The course is truly cross-disciplinary, covering science, nutrition, business and marketing aspects of food. The elective content, we call it Part C, and I'll explain that shortly, taps into active research in progress at Monash, which by definition you won't find anywhere else in the world. And finally, we offer the choice of a 1 semester long research project or internship, which will support your launch into either work or maybe further postgraduate study. Okay, so now it's time to have a bit more of a detailed look at the structure of the course. You can see here we've got 4 parts that we call Part A, B, C and D. And if taken consecutively, this will take 2 academic years to complete. And I mean by that without any credits. So we run Part A in semester 1, Part B in semester 2, Part C in semester 3, let's say, in the second year, and Part D we run in either semester 1 or 2 to allow flexibility for those students who commence mid-year. So for a student commencing in semester 1, you would take your course in the sequence A, B, C and D. However, for a student that is commencing in semester 2, you would take your course in part B, A, then D, and finally finishing with Part C. However, for those who have some credits, we can meet and we'll plan your personal course map, which may also include some selective units from other master's courses at Monash, if that's of interest to you. So just a little bit more detail about the Parts A and B units. In general, we have 7 disciplinary areas that we teach based on the core disciplines across food science and agribusiness. They cover food chemistry, food engineering, food microbiology, food nutrition, food marketing, and we call it customer-focused innovation, food supply chain, which is around global agribusiness, and we have 1 unit focused on the future of the food supply. These Parts A and B units form the core 7 and 1 practical unit. These form the compulsory foundation units of the course. And here is a bit more detail on the Part C and D. In Part C, this is our elective part. The discipline areas are offered at advanced level, and the students here select in this Part C, the 3rd semester of the 2-year program. Students select 4 out of 7 of these advanced units, and that permits their specialisation in topics of preference. In Part C, it is also possible to take a selective unit, we call that, which is a relevant postgraduate level unit from another Monash Master's course. And there's enormous choice and growing choice, I must say, in those selective units from outside Master's courses. And finally, in Part D, students choose an advanced practice unit, which is a 1 semester long research project or internship. We're very excited and very proud of this offering because, again, it is part of the unique structure of this course. So students can choose either a research project or an internship depending on their career aspirations. So is this you? Then you may be eligible to enrol. So if you're a local or an international student with a bachelor's degree, you will need a 60% credit average. If your degree is in science, engineering, dietetics or health, if you meet English language requirements, and if you're seeking a pathway into into work that's related to government, industry, research, or entrepreneurial initiatives. If this is you and you seek a cultural and educationally broadening experience with like-minded students, then we'd be very pleased to hear from you. So just some links for some more information about the course, provided here. And finally, we hope the course can launch you on a fabulous and meaningful career in the food space. So thank you for your attention, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.